It's TK Irish with the Camp Kennerk podcast. You wouldn't believe I got a letter the other day, and it was from, yes, the IRS. And no one in America has ever opened up a letter from the IRS and said, "Hey, honey, great news. The IRS wrote us." You know, the envelope said official government business. That is government talk for saying sit down before opening. So I opened it and it says I am being audited. But here's the crazy part. They're auditing me from 2011 taxes. 2011, that's 14 years ago. In 2011, my biggest financial decision was whether I could afford unlimited texting. And my phone didn't even have any apps. So apparently, this is the way I figured out. Somewhere at the IRS, there's a guy saying, "Hey, remember TK's taxes from 2011? Yeah, the guy who made $17 that year. I think we need to take a look at his records again. I'm a little suspicious of this." So 14 years later, at that point, I thought taxes expired like milk. But the letter says the reason for the audit is irregular deductions. Irregular deductions. 2011, I didn't have any irregular deductions. I barely had any income. Then they tell me what I need to bring to the meeting: bank statements, receipts, mileage logs, proof of charitable deductions. The only thing I have from 2011 is a box in my garage that says important stuff. I went and looked at it, and you know what I found in there? I found a couple old cables from some electronics. There were some paper receipts that all the ink came off. So I have blank pieces of paper saying I bought something, but we don't know what that is. So this is definitely going to be something that I have to work on. And then they say I need to bring my mileage log, a mileage log from 2011. I can't remember where I drove yesterday. And if they ask me where I drove on March 3rd, 2011, my answer will be, I don't know, probably somewhere where they sell tacos. Then the letter says, if documentation cannot be provided, the IRS will estimate your income. Estimate my income. 2011. I was so broke back then I couldn't even pay attention. And then the letter says the audit could take 2 to 4 hours. 2 to 4 hours sitting with an IRS agent. You want me to sit there explaining financial decisions I made while Blockbuster was still in business? I don't even know why I spent $18 at Office Depot. It could have been some office supplies, or I just bought a couple candy bars. But my favorite line of the whole situation is it says, "Don't panic." Now, you know this, anytime a letter that tells you do not panic, it means it's too late. So I'm preparing for my audit. I got my shoebox of faded receipts, a calculator, a couple highlighters. And honestly, I'm thinking of just bringing something that proves I didn't make any money in 2011. I'm going to drive over my 2002 Honda Accord with 300,000 miles because if the IRS sees that car, they're not going to audit me. If they do anything, they're going to start a GoFundMe page. So, Doug the neighbor, have you ever received a letter like that?
TK, so good to see you. And that's a funny, funny letter. And just
Yeah,
remember,
funny for you. It's not addressed to you.
yeah, we've all gotten that letter, believe you me. And remember that a letter from the IRS has caused more heart attacks than overeating.
Yeah, your heart drops up in your throat. You get immediate indigestion, and that's just when you see it in the mailbox. And then you got all that time by the time you get home, and you sit there and you see it the steam coming off the
Yeah.
envelope.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, uh-oh. Okay, I'll do this, but it's got to be quick. It's just like peeling off the Band-Aid.
Yes, but here we are on tax day doing our 78th podcast, Camp Gunner podcast, and it is tax day. So very appropriate that you have a tax letter, a story there. Now, do you have your Dr. Pepper? I got mine right here.
Man, I've been sipping on it all day after I've been reading that letter from the IRS. I think we may need to do a little bump up here later on.
And well, I've got my Cracker Box popcorn from Maxie up in Landers, Wyoming. So I got my popcorn right here, and it's really, really good.
Well, I
And
got
that
mine right here as well, but I'm waiting for her to send me a refill. I don't pace myself very well when I get some of her pop.
No, neither do I. Neither do I. And since she's our first sponsor, we have this little note here. Cracker Box Popcorn, Landers, Wyoming, 307-335-7020. Maxie up there in Landers. And if you order, you'll get a smile.
That's right. So she's always pleasant to work with and talk to, and she's always popping up with new ideas.
Yes, and that's beautiful. And sadly, our art department, they do a great job on a limited budget.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I have some sort of information for you concerning taxes because it's relatively something has been around forever. You know, the, uh, the powers that be would tax other people. You know, the people they conquer, well, we're taxing. And sometimes they would have a tax collector that just went to your farm and say, well, you've got 10 pigs, I'm taking 7 of them. Simple as that. Or you grew a bunch of grain, well, I'm taking 5 sacks of grain. You know, that sort of stuff. And so taxes and tariffs have been around forever, which I find kind of interesting is the history of it, that one of the first federal taxes in the United States. Now, other countries have their tax system, which I don't know how you comprehend that because it's hard enough to do ours, to do ours. We now have to get to a point where, yes, you can do your own taxes. God bless you. God bless you. Or you can pay somebody to do your taxes.
And
And
then you still say, God bless you. God
God
bless
bless
you.
you.
Don't get me going on that paid service.
Yeah, and they know how much money you got, so they increase the rate they're going to charge you. You know, So, but anyway, I found a couple of interesting things here. One of the first federal taxes in the United States was in 1789, which was an excise tax on tariffs of imported goods. So, 1789, they had sugar and rum coming from the West Indies. They had goods coming in from England. They had sadly slaves coming from Africa. So there was
Don't forget the Boston Tea Party.
yes, that was a tax. Yes, that the British implied on the tea to pay for the war, and the Stamp Act, which was anytime you posted something, it was a little like you did a will, you got to pay to have something on a Stamp Act. So that was the final one. Now the first personal income tax, excuse me, first personal income tax was to finance the Civil War, and it started in 1861. And then it was repealed in 1872
Hmm.
because the war had ended, and it was, I found this figure. It was 3% for anyone who made over $800. Now, $800 in 1865 was a lot of money. So it was 3%. Okay. Now, in 1913, the first permanent federal income tax, and it's called the 16th Amendment, was implied or adjudicated or initiated, and that was the first personal permanent federal income tax. And then in 1943, that was during World War II, they initiated withholding taxes by employers. In other words, instead of you honestly paying your taxes, when you're money was taken out of your paycheck in 1943. So that's kind of interesting. And then there's during the Spanish American War, 1898, where they, you know, Teddy Roosevelt invaded Cuba and that sort of stuff, that war there. Uh, the Congress initiated a 3% telephone telephone service revenue act of 1898 for, and it's supposed to be, quote, a temporary tax. Keyword.
That's an oxymoron if I've ever heard of one.
Yeah, by the government, temporary. Yeah.
Mhm.
It was to be a temporary tax on long distance calls. Okay. And it was a tax of 3 cents, no, 1 cent tax for long distance calls that cost 15 cents. So if long distance call was 15 cents or more, you had to pay 1 cent tax.
That
Okay.
was in 1898. So they didn't have a whole lot of telephone. Mall Bell was just getting cranked up at the time. So
Yeah. That's what's interesting is not a lot of phones, but there was a 3% telephone service tax to pay for the uh, Spanish American War in 1898.
mhm.
Okay. That and was temporary.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Uh-huh. Okay. That tax was repealed in 2006.
Well, sometimes you know how the government is. They just don't move real quick.
Real quick. So 108 years, basically 108
I
years.
can't take a
Temporary.
joke. Bummer.
Yeah. So now that's kind of interesting. And here in our society right now, when somebody says you read about these athletes that make a lot of money, okay, they make a lot of money. Well, right off the top, a standard rule of thumb is the government takes 50%.
Yeah.
It's 35% for the federal government, 6 or 7% for the local government, social security tax, something else, and tax, your accounting tax. Rule of thumb is like Roy McIlroy made $4 million on the Masters this year. Okay. Well, rule of thumb, he only ends up with 2 million.
Yes. And one thing to realize when you talk about athletes, they play games in different cities and states, and each city and state have their own tax levels.
Yes.
And they have I call it a luxury tax. If you make, if you're a professional athlete and you come in town to play 3 games, your paycheck for those three or 2 or 3 games gets hit with an additional tax.
Right. I believe it's called a jock tax.
Okay.
A jock tax. And it's the days that you're inside of a state is considered duty days because you might come in, stay the night, and then play 3 game series. Then so duty days, that's how they figured it all out. And that's also a very interesting situation in athletics where pro athletes are now looking at teams that are in non-tax or no state income tax places to live to live and then also to play because they make more money. Two teams offer you $10 million a year, but if you live in a no state tax like Texas, all right, so you don't have to pay state income tax, or Tennessee or Florida, whatever, you pay
Mhm.
less tax. So
Well, just think about the guys who play for the New York Yankees. I mean, they live in New York City. They have more taxes. They got taxes on taxes, and you live there. You know the drill.
yes, I do. And it was kind of interesting because Derek Jeter and A-Rod lived in the West Village. I would see them every now and then. And
Hmm.
I did read something. Well, why are they the only two that lived in Manhattan? Because there is a Manhattan tax too. And it
Oh,
was because they were the marquee players. And so they had it in their contract that the Yankees would pay city tax. Whereas, like you said, a lot of the players would live in Connecticut or New Jersey and commute because the taxes were lower.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of an interesting thing. And now my opinion is I'm happy to pay my taxes because we have roads, we have schools, we have parks, we have healthcare. I'm very happy to pay my taxes, but I'm not happy about the abuse and the lack of oversight to prevent fraud by the government. That's so sad that we have to have this guy, Nick Shirley, who goes on TikTok and uncovers billions of dollars in fraud in Minnesota. Now he's in California uncovering this elder care fraud. And now the state of California has introduced a bill that it's illegal for news organizations to look into fraud. You know, this is where we're getting at.
Yeah.
So the fact that this 22, 3-year old kid with a cell phone camera who had a history of making funny TikTok videos is now the center of uncovering fraud in the United States. Where was the federal government? Where are the state governments? Where are the big news organizations? Why were they sleeping on it? Now they're looking really sad, and it's a 22-year-old kid, Nick Shirley, who's doing it. So I hope he's got I hope he's got security because there are people who are going to be upset about this, and we need to build a statue to this kid. You know, he's changed
Yeah.
everything.
And we can use tax dollars.
Yeah.
We'll create a tax. Hey, that's it. The Nick Twitter
Committee. We need a
account tax.
committee and a
Yeah,
chairman.
that's what we'll do. Well, and we'll put it right there in the middle of Washington, D.C. as a reminder.
Absolutely true. So, yes, it's tax day. I paid my taxes. I'm very happy to get it done. Just a little problem concerning the abuse and, why isn't the government doing a better job? Raise the taxes to do a better job, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's so much on my rant for this, but I've got a little bit of an interesting situation concerning my neighbor who's doing very well in life, John Casa. He went skiing in Big Sky, Montana. And I believe you have that video, and it's now, and Kevin, the magnificent computer dude, can post it where he's in Big Sky, Montana.
Oh, hi there, neighbor. John Casa here, hanging out in Big Sky, Montana. Just wrapping up the day on these beautiful slopes. Check out these views. Incredible.
I wonder if he knows Mountain Man Steve.
I don't
I
know.
mean,
They know each other.
when you get up there, I mean, it's not like, if you live like 250 miles apart, that's just down the street for those guys because there's nothing in between the 250 miles.
Absolutely true. And of course, they got Wyoming Willie up there, so maybe he saw them while he was up there skiing. And the easy part, he was riding in a gondola. So,
Uh-huh.
and he had some comments, and believe we have that video there.
Oh, hi there, neighbor. John Casa here, hanging out in Big Sky, Montana. Going up in the gondola, doing some more green runs. But maybe I'll stay on this and ride it some more. It's got heated seats.
Good. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I mean, actually, between you and me, I think he was actually on a scouting mission looking for Wyoming Willie, but it's just a rumor. It's just
Yeah,
a
well,
rumor.
there's three types of skiing. There's downhill, there's cross country, and après skiing, and I'm really good at the après. They call me Fireplace Doug.
There you go. The mayor
Yeah,
at Fireplace Mayor.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, I talk a good game. Little snow on my face. Those black diamonds, right?
Well, you know what you do? I always, like sort of paint my fingertips black so it looks like frostbite. You know, that's always a great conversation, especially when I have to go pick my nose.
And slap your cheeks a couple of times to get them pink. Oh, brisk outside.
Yeah.
Well, TK, that's pretty much what I've got today, but I've got a little bit of free advice for $1 from Doug the neighbor, and you get the Camp Kennerk, we get the Camp Kennerk podcast discount. Doug the neighbor, free advice for $1. Your karma is more important than your money.
That's right. But some people don't figure that out until it's too late.
Too late. Absolutely true. TK, that's what I got. Play ball.
Aaron, go ball.